Welcome to Honeybee. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. My name is Shah. When you bring a child into this world, you take on the responsibility of showing up for them day after day. As their father, I gave what I had, made sacrifices where I needed to, and stayed committed quietly. But even with all that, I found myself standing in a moment that felt like a hard slap to the face, and it came from the one person I never expected would hurt me that way, my own daughter. That night, I made a choice no one could have predicted. For the first time in years, I decided to protect my peace rather than keep trying to prove that I was good enough. When I married a woman I thought I'd grow old with, I honestly believed I had everything I'd ever wanted. Our wedding day was perfect. Every detail, from the location to the music, was chosen to give her the dream wedding she had always wished for. That day was supposed to be the start of our forever. The early years of marriage were peaceful. Sure, we had the usual adjustments and small arguments that come with living together, but overall, things were good. About a year later, we welcomed our daughter, Andrea, and that day changed everything for me. I had always wanted to be a father, and when Andrea arrived, it was overwhelming in the best possible way. From that moment on, my whole world started revolving around her. I shifted my schedule, made sure I was present, and gave all I had to be the best father I could be. Andrea became the heart of my life. Back then, I believed we had built something unshakable, a family that would withstand anything life threw at us. If you had asked me in those early years how life was going, I would have said I was blessed, and I truly was. But everything changed when Andrea turned 5. That's when I discovered the messages. My wife had been cheating on me, and not with a stranger, but with someone I consider friend. The discovery didn't just hurt, it shattered me, destroyed everything I believed about love, trust, and loyalty. What made it worse was that she didn't even try to deny it. Instead, she looked me in the eye and acted like I was overreacting, like I was blowing things out of proportion. She even twisted it back on me, accusing me of being emotionally distant and controlling. Anything to shift the blame and avoid facing what she'd done. It was classic gaslighting, and she showed no remorse. Even after all of that, I wanted to believe we could work through it. Because of Andrea, that little girl was my entire world, and I couldn't bear the thought of her growing up in a broken home. We even brought in close friends we both respected, hoping they could help her see the damage she was doing. But she refused to take responsibility, refused to admit any fault. Eventually, I realized I was the only one fighting to save the marriage. So I let go. I filed for divorce. I couldn't stay in something that was slowly destroying me. But she didn't make it easy. Almost immediately, she started twisting the story, painting herself as the abandoned victim, and worst of all, using Andrea as a weapon against me. Every conversation about custody or support felt like blackmail because she had cheated. I started asking myself questions I never thought I'd have to. Was Andrea even mine? Had she lied to me about that too? The thought consumed me. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and every time I looked at my daughter, I didn't know what to believe anymore. So I asked for a DNA test. I needed the truth. When the results came back, Andrea was mine. The relief was immediate, but it was mixed with bitterness, because I realized how deeply her mother had twisted everything, even my sense of fatherhood. I never stopped loving Andrea, but I also knew from that moment on that I had to protect that love from being used against me. The divorce was ugly, filled with tension I hadn't expected. I told my ex we didn't need to go through the courts for child support. I was ready to take care of Andrea on my own. But she insisted, not because she thought I wouldn't pay, but because she wanted control. So I complied. I paid every month on time. I continued covering school fees, uniforms, books, doctor visits, whatever Andrea needed. Quietly. I even opened a college fund in her name that neither she nor her mother knew about. I wanted her to have opportunities, no matter what happened between her parents. Even though the marriage was over, I worked hard to stay present in Andrea's life. I never missed a birthday. If I couldn't be there in person, I sent thoughtful gifts that showed I knew her and paid attention. I called often, sent messages regularly, and for a while it worked. She was still my little girl, still called me Dad with joy in her voice. But slowly, things changed. Her mother wasn't happy that Andrea and I had a bond outside of her control. At first, I told myself the distance was normal. Teenagers pull away, want more independence. But it started feeling like a wall was being built between us, one brick at a time, until it was too tall for me to see over. She stopped calling, stopped asking to spend time together. I'd reach out, and her replies were distant, cold. Then came the accusations. Andrea started saying I had hurt her mom and didn't care about them. Those weren't her words. I could tell. They were her mother's. My ex had poisoned her against me. And by then, she had remarried. Her new husband played the perfect stepdad role, buying gifts, taking Andrea on trips, doing grand gestures that look good on the outside. To a teenager, that kind of tension feels real. Slowly, I was pushed out completely. I wasn't allowed to visit, wasn't welcome at school events. If I tried to show up, my ex would threaten to call the police. Still, I kept supporting Andrea financially, paid child support, covered school costs, sent extra when needed. I never stopped, even though no one ever thanked me. I told myself I was doing the right thing, holding on to what little connection we had left. Then came her high school graduation party, a day I had been looking forward to for months. I paid for her dress, covered catering costs, paid for photography, sent extra for anything last minute. That day, everything looked perfect on the outside. The decorations, the music, the laughter. I stood quietly in the background, smiling, clapping, proud just to be there. When Andrea took the mic for her speech, I waited for her to mention me. She thanked her teachers, her friends, her mom. Then she smiled and said, "I want to thank my stepdad for being there for me. He bought me my first car. He stepped up when my real dad never did anything." Right there, in front of everyone, she erased me, replaced me with a man who had only been there a fraction of the time, a man who showed up with shiny gifts while I've been the one quietly funding her entire life. My ex stood nearby, smug, like she had written this moment herself. I felt humiliated, gutted, but I didn't make a scene. Not every battle is worth fighting in public. So I left. I walked out of the party, got into my car, and drove home in silence. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, still in the clothes I had worn to the party. I couldn't eat. I just kept replaying that moment in my head. Her words, her smile, the applause that followed. In that moment, I realized they didn't value me. Not her, not her mother, not for what I gave, not for what I sacrificed. So I made a decision. I opened a laptop and logged into the account where I had been saving for Andrea's college education. Every month, I had put money aside without fail, but that night, I withdrew every last cent. The account was under my name, so there was no one to argue with. Then I shut down every extra transfer I had set up over the years. Clothing money, school activity funds, the quiet top-ups I sent just to make things easier. I left only the court-ordered child support. That was my legal duty, and I kept paying it until Andrea's 18th birthday. After that, I owed nothing, not legally, not emotionally. For weeks after that graduation party, the silence between me, Andrea, and her mother was deafening. I didn't expect to hear from them, and I didn't. When Andrea was accepted into university, I didn't hear it from her. As usual, her mother reached out first, asking for tuition money. I ignored the text. She messaged again the next day, saying I should do the right thing as a father. I didn't respond. She called, sent more texts, tried to guilt me. I ignored them all. Then Andrea called. I didn't expect that, so I picked up. She sounded unsure, but before she could say much, I reminded her of that graduation speech, how I had sat there while she told the world I had done nothing. I asked her if she even remembered who had paid for her dress, the photographer, the food, if she remembered all the quiet sacrifices I had made for years. She said nothing, and that silence told me everything. So I told her clearly I would keep paying the child support until she turned 18. After that, she was on her own. If she wanted college, she could go alone, work part-time like many others do. I had already gone above and beyond. Then I ended the call. From then until her 18th birthday, I kept everything strictly by the book. Sent the exact support amount, nothing extra. No calls, no texts, no birthday card when the day came. If they wanted to act like I had never been there, I was done trying to prove otherwise. A week after her 18th birthday, Andrea showed up at my door. It was a Saturday morning. She knew I'd be home. She had planned this. I let her in, poured her a cup of coffee, and waited. The moment I set the mug in front of her, she broke down crying. She said she was sorry. She said she had been lied to, that her mother twisted everything, painted me as a villain, and made her stepdad look like the hero. She told me that after I cut them off financially, things started falling apart. The car got repossessed, bills piled up, and suddenly her stepdad wasn't so generous anymore. That's when she started asking questions. She found the truth, the texts, the bank statements, the receipts. My name was on everything. When she told her mother she wanted to come see me, it turned into a fight. But Andrea had made up her mind. She needed to see me for herself. Through tears, she apologized for believing the lies, for what she said in her speech, for taking me for granted all those years. She said she didn't want money, didn't want favors, just a chance to rebuild what we had. I wanted to stay angry. I had been holding on to that anger for months. But when your child sits across from you, humbled, broken, and finally seeing the truth, that anger feels heavy and useless. So I just reached across the table and held her hand. That was enough to start healing. In the weeks that followed, Andrea didn't ask for her college fund back. All she asked was if she could move in with me. She didn't want to stay in that toxic house with her mother anymore. I told her she could, that my home would always have a room for her. And from that day on, we began slowly piecing things back together. We planned for her university, talked about her future, even what kind of car she'd actually like to drive. As for her mother, I stopped thinking about her completely. That chapter was closed. My only focus now is Andrea, making sure she never again questions whether her father was there for her, because I always was. And now she knows it.